practice committed to providing superior mental health services in the Tampa Bay area. Dr. Shanae also offers clinical supervision to counselors in training as well. When Dr. Shanae is not counseling individuals and families, she uses her clinical training and experiences with vulnerable populations to train community stakeholders in trauma-informed service delivery. Dr. Shanae is committed to educate, empower, and equipping professionals for total community wellness. She's on our show today because she is a breast cancer survivor. Dr. Shanae Davis and I are so fortunate to be able to bring this platform to you each and every month. We are not breast cancer survivors, but are honored to be able to have as friends and colleagues the ladies who are sharing with us today. Right, Dr. Davis?
Indeed, indeed. And just so that our audience isn't confused, Dr. Shanae Simmons is just one of my spirit angels. I've never met anyone else named Shanae, and she and I just connected organically. She's finishing up a presentation and she'll be on momentarily.
All right. So thank you so much. And that's right. 2 Dr. Shanaes. How about that? And so also, and I like to call this, my friend and colleague, the poster child for the Moffitt Cancer Center when it comes to bringing cancer awareness, breast cancer awareness to our community. And that's none other than Melissa Vasquez. She is retired information technician from the Navy for 20 years. She's the daughter of James and Mary Battles. Melissa is an engineer and holds a BS degree in computer information science. We should have her working on our commercial. She's an author of children's books. She's a life coach. She's a notary and soon to be real estate agent. She's been married for 29 years, has 3 amazing sons, Jaden, Javier, and Giovanni. She is a breast cancer survivor of 6 years. She had 3 different cancers and 7 surgeries while fighting breast cancer. Wow. She's a breast cancer, thyroid, and bladder cancer survivor. By the grace of God and her Moffitt doctors, she is here with us today. Now, her youngest son was 8 years old, Dr. Davis, when she was diagnosed with cancer. She's also here joining us as the president of Sisters Network Tampa Bay, and her organizations help women and men who are uninsured receive screenings at no cost to them. The organization, yes, pays for mammograms for people who can't afford, and she has a lot of other affiliations. What she wants us to hear today, her tagline, I don't let cancer beat me, period. Welcome back to the show, Melissa Vasquez. What say you?
Wow, that introduction, that bio, you did it justice. I appreciate that, Cheryl. Just hearing you say all of those things, I was like, wow, I know I did them, but to hear them in the air, it just took me back. So thank you for that introduction.
Well, you're more than welcome, but let me go ahead and let our listeners know. So thank you to our Facebook listeners, our Ntouch News Radio listeners, our YouTubers. Melissa Vasquez was also awarded the 2021 Humanitarian Award by the AKA chapter and the My Sisters Keepers Award, if that's not enough for you already. We're so glad to have you here. She has such a humble spirit. Wouldn't you agree, Dr. Davis?
Yes, she does. Yes, she does. Melissa, remind us, how old were you when you were diagnosed with breast cancer?
44.
44. Stick a pin in that. Got some interesting stats.
All right. Well, we appreciate that. And let's see, there are 2 more ladies joining us today. Leah Rae. Now, Leah is not a Tampan. She was born in Sumter, South Carolina. Oh, she's such a bold soul. On February the 15th, 1973. She is the first child of Lester Burns and Joyce Ray Jones. Leah is the proud mother of 5 boys and 2 girls, and the Mimi and Medea of 2 precious granddaughters. Aaliyah was first diagnosed with breast cancer days before her 41st birthday in 2015. She trusted God to heal her, and her unwavering faith was tested yet again when the plastic surgeon told her the dreadful news, June 2016, that the nodule on the same right breast following chemotherapy, the mastectomy, and reconstruction was malignant. She continued to trust God for victory over cancer, and today she is healed and here with us and here on this earth, as she says, to make memories with her two beautiful grands. Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show, Leah Rae.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for the introduction.
You are welcome, and we're going to hear from all of them in just a minute, but there's one more. Michelle Bass, originally from New York, has lived in Tampa for 6 years. She has been married for 35 years to Robert and is the proud mother of 2 adult children. Michelle retired after 28 years of service with PepsiCo. And during that time, she held, are you all ready for this? 13 different roles spanning across manufacturing all the way to corporate HR and change leadership. Wow, congratulations, girl. Proud to this, she served in the U.S. Army, first enlisted and then as an officer. Thank you for your service. And Melissa as well. Michelle has always been engaged in a wide variety of organizations and activities, which as an advocate for women and people of color in the workplace, with the goal of recruiting, establishing a pipeline, and development of talent for future leadership opportunities. Well, she also wants us to know, most recently, she's a 4-year cancer survivor herself and is a member of Sisters Network Tampa Bay. She enjoys traveling, outdoor activities and sports, and plays several musical instruments. Welcome, first time Michelle Bass, to the show.
Hello, how are all of you? Thank you again for your introduction. I truly appreciate it. And I just have to say, I really feel privileged to be here with you all today. Very much so.
Well, I'm sure Dr. Davis and I will agree. We're the privileged ones.
We are the privileged ones.
We are the privileged ones. Just being here and sharing this platform and this stage with you and learning so much about your lives, and not only just what you're going through physically, but what you're doing for your community and outside of your family. So we're going to see what Dr. Davis has to say about all of this. Welcome again to the show.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this year, we wanted to do something a little bit different. In the past, when we've sat down with the Sisters Network and other survivors of breast cancer, even Dr. Joyce Austin, shout out to her. This year, we wanted to do something different. You've all heard of the Red Table online with Jada Pinkett Smith and her mom and daughter, and they talk about sensitive things that we as African Americans sometimes leave in the closet, leave on the table, just leave undiscussed, that we keep in our heart, that really should be shared with at least the people that we're related to, so that we understand our risk and can address those. We wanted to have a pink table discussion today, a conversation about the lived experience in breast cancer. They say when you know better, you do better. And if we're able to hear the experience of you survivors, and what you went through, what you felt, how you grieved the loss of your breast and your health sense of norm. Maybe there's somebody out there that isn't having a discussion with their family members. They aren't, going to see about that particular symptom that was nagging them, and they just knew that something needed to be done that can motivate them towards action. We want to have that conversation today. So we want to have you talk amongst yourselves. We'll chime in, but we want to talk about or hear about your reaction when you had that first diagnosis. How does that compare, you, Michelle, to you, Melissa, and Dr. Shanae and Aaliyah? What about those feelings of your, body image, changing after treatment? And what do you think about, your experience in comparison to your fellow sister? So let's talk about that. Let's start with, what did you feel when you were first diagnosed?
I'll go ahead and actually start with that. I've listened to a lot of my Pink sisters discuss that moment of what was it like. And I noticed that there tends to be a lot of commonality in the context of there being almost a sadness, a shock, a worry feeling. And I referenced that because my experience was a little bit different. And I've always been curious if there are other people who experienced what I did. As soon as the doctor informed me of my diagnosis, I really had two very distinct feelings. My first feeling was one of intense anger. And I was angry because I had felt like I had worked so hard and sacrificed so many things. And I was looking forward to getting to a place of retirement, enjoying my life. And all of a sudden, I felt like here was this cancer that was going to rob me of that. So I experienced a lot of anger, which was kind of difficult because as I walked out of the office and met my husband, he met me as a wall of anger, and he didn't even know what had happened yet. So it was kind of a strange experience for me. And then the second thing that I experienced was a very, very strong sense of disappointment in myself. And I say that because I began to say, wait a minute, what did I do wrong? I started reflecting back, I've been working, I've been under stress, I haven't been taking care of myself. And I immediately started thinking, this is your own fault. You could have, prevented this from happening. So those were two very, very prevailing feelings for me the very first days of my diagnosis.
Wow.
Hearing you just say that.
Well, for me,
go ahead, Doctor.
Just hearing the C word, that was, of course, a big deal. And with that being said, I heard they were able to tell me the same day at Moffitt, biopsy, she came in, the nurse, by the time I was coming out the smock in the dressing room, and she kneeled to the floor beside me as I was getting dressed to tell me that, pathology report was back that soon and that she was sorry that I had cancer. And, of course, why me? The tears, the eyes flooding. And I too was at that same appointment with my husband, and, him coming out to meet me, or me coming out to meet him, he just knew it, the look on my face. And of course, he saw the pink bag that they gave me. So we all kind of knew then yeah. So mine was just sadness and, the why me. I know people say they don't say why me, but I was saying why me. So.
Dr. Shanae?
Absolutely. I had both of those experiences in part. I immediately had a sense of, fear was the first feeling that came over, a sense of doom, like I'm going to die. And then there was a sense of, wow, how did I get here? I delayed attending to my symptoms. So I had a sense of anger toward myself and disappointment in myself because of the delay, which led me to a more advanced staging. And I also had a sense of anger. It was short-lived, but it was a sense of anger toward God because of the service, my service in my faith community. I just could not understand how I could be facing such a crisis, considering my service. And so I definitely echoed those feelings. The timing was a little bit different in terms of how my husband got that information. I was given the formal confirmation privately. No one was home. I got a phone call because I would not initially receive the preliminary diagnosis from the oncologist. So I was home. And when my husband came home, right before my children came home, he faced a very confused and overwhelmed person. And so I definitely echo those sentiments that the ladies have shared.
Leah.
Yes. Okay, so for me, I was alone and for a brief moment in denial. for those that I heard of having cancer, they died. And so instantly after I told the doctor, like, who are you talking to? I went in fight mode. And that was with my faith and trust in God. I knew that at the time that if my kids were to find out, that the enemy would be not only attempting to take me out, but my family. My kids and I, we are very, very close. And so for them, they are the reason I had to fight just as hard. And today I'm here. And I have that to credit to my faith and trust in God. And also add the doctors. I believe that the doctors are here, the science is here for a reason. I always trusted God for healing, but he used by way of medication, chemotherapy, and radiation. And I'm here today to tell my own testimony.
Michelle, your response, all of you had a little bit of anger. Your response went a little differently than Dr. Shanae and Aaliyah. There was a bunch of anger, a bunch of denial. What would you ask them? What would you ask someone who delayed treatment in hindsight? I want you to inquire about each other's experience. I want to hear your thoughts, and I want to hear what you're thinking about the experience of your sister.
It's really interesting. The first part, what you referenced is, what would I say or advise, so to speak, to somebody who was delaying? I think that would be twofold. I think it would be stop the delay immediately. You have to take the steps that are necessary, which might just be getting a mammogram. But a lot of people live in fear of what if the mammogram is positive, and then they don't want to get the mammogram. So the first thing I would truly offer is stop the delay and go do, the things that are necessary for you to do. And then I think the second part of it is, for me, again, it was anger. For some people, it was fear, or just a lot of different manifestations. I think I would tell people to allow yourself to feel whatever it is you feel. Your feelings are authentic to you and your experiences. Allow yourself to feel that. And then if necessary, forgive yourself if you feel you need to for what you are feeling. And I think that would be my biggest pieces of advice to people.
Okay. Speaking of forgiving yourself, intervening early, a lot of body image feelings come about. In your sister network, when you talk about each other and the different, things that you have in common and the things that were different about your experiences, share with us how you help each other through the changes in body image.
Is that for me?
That's for all of you.
Oh, okay. So I'll let somebody else have the floor for that.
So when we do meet in person, we definitely, it's for a couple hours and it's once a month and it's on Saturdays. But at the moment we have been doing Zooms, but we definitely discuss business. And we also, when I say business, we're discussing what our next event is, what expo, what church, where we're going to go. But we do, when we have someone that's currently going through treatment and they have questions, because it is a support group, we talk about, for instance, hey, I was prescribed this medicine. Have you ladies heard of it? And they will say, well, yeah, I was on it, but maybe it made me have diarrhea or constipation. I do try to pair up, per se, if I know that someone is newly diagnosed or they're going to have a mastectomy of some sort. I try to pair them up, or I call them myself, and just to let them know, like, this is the feeling, this is what I went through. Sis, this is what you're probably going to go through. You're going to need some button-up clothes, vice pulling over your head. So I let them know, these are some of the things that you're going, perhaps you're going to need a chair that sits in the shower, for a while. It took me this long to heal. But so we just encourage, even though family and you have so much support, it's nothing, in my opinion, like just having somebody who's gone through it with you as well, if that makes sense. And a lot of times, because we're so she heroes, we put up the front for our families because we just say, I'm okay. And I know I did that a lot throughout my treatment, just telling everybody I was okay. But it did me all the good to join support groups and find women and men that were like at the same, which is where I met Michelle at, but another support group at Moffitt, and brought her over to Sisters Network. But that just being in that support group and definitely seeing someone who looked like me. I don't care how much you go to the internet, but just that live support and just seeing someone that looked like me and, well, how long did it take your hair to grow back? Or how long, why am I so ashy? And they were like, it's the chemo. Stop using Bath and Body products, Melissa, for the time being. But yeah, I was definitely silent about mine. I didn't pronounce it to my whole family. When I say that, it's because my family loves social media, and I just was not ready to have all of the emojis on Facebook for me. So I kind of swore my family, and here's kind of like where Leah and I kind of are the same. I kind of swore my family, like, okay, let's just keep it in house. And I was wrong for that. And at the time, it seemed like I was doing right, because I even swore my husband to secrecy, like, okay, don't tell people, because I felt like it was all my fault. And I didn't want it to get out of the home. And which makes no sense, in hindsight, of course, but when I'm going through it, and you just be so surprised who noticed. Like my neighbors noticed, and they said, oh, I see your car in the driveway. I don't see you going. Are you working? And, they was just all up in my business. But when I said I had breast cancer, they did definitely come to my defense. And I saw pink ribbons on my street because they asked, can we tie them around our mailbox? So sometimes just keeping it in is not a good thing like we think it is. And, just sharing. So that's kind of what we do. If there's a certain medication or somebody's going through it, we kind of help one another through that.
Leah, what brought you out? What made you speak?
What made me speak? My son. There was a scare where I couldn't breathe. I just felt that I was being suffocated. And to find out after driving myself to daycare, they checked the oxygen level. The oxygen level was at 100, but I was still telling the doctors and the nurses, I can't breathe. Long story short, to find out my hemoglobin was like a 7.4. And at that time, I had to, within 4 weeks, I had 3 blood transfusions and 2 iron transfusions because of my blood levels being so low. And then when the nurse came in, I said, call my son. So when she called my son, she said, is there anyone else I can call? Because he's at work. I said, no, he's the only one that knows. And it was the nurse that said, if you were my mother, and if anything happened to me, I would not only hate you, but I would hate my brother. So that was a conversation. I gave her my daughter's phone number. My son was at work at school. My daughter was at Riverview at school working, and they all met me there. And that is when the family found out, that when I was leaving and I'm telling them I'm going out to volunteer, I was actually going for treatments, They had no idea. They didn't even know I didn't have any hair. And I told them, I would just make up different excuses because I did not want to burden them. And by not burdening them and not including them, it caused my fight to be a little more tougher, because it then went from just fighting breast cancer to high blood pressure, many strokes, so it's just like a domino effect, so it went from one thing and multiplied into multiple things. So yeah.
Can I add something there that I was sitting here thinking? It's really interesting because As I listen to people, I'm trying to internalize what they're saying. If I was going to be totally transparent, I would say that I still have a very difficult time sharing that with people. And that may surprise people because I'm sitting here on this call having this conversation. But the difference is, to my knowledge, there's nobody I know on this call. And I find that whenever I go out to public, the first thing that goes to my mind is, will there be anybody that I know who will see me at this meeting? So I might need to find a little bit of time with you, Dr. Shanae, to help me work through this, because I still carry that. Maybe I shouldn't let people know. They may look at me like I've got a weakness. I wasn't strong enough. So that's still a battle for me, all these years later. And my team probably doesn't know that, but yes, it is still a battle for me.
Dr. Davis, you've got to appreciate her honesty.
I love that. And that's what this is about. I know we got about 2 more minutes before we have to go off to break. But because she addressed Dr. Shanae directly, Dr. Shanae did that. She put a book out about her journey. I would love for her to respond. Tell us about her journey. Yes. So we got it there. Yeah. So I'll let you take us to commercial.
Okay. So, I love these sisters. Like, they're all phenomenal. And being a part of the group actually gave me the courage to put my story out. It normalized the experience for me. I was supported in my process in a way that was very different in groups that didn't have people that looked like me. And there were so many other variations to how does your community respond? What was my community's response? That I felt compelled to say things that a lot of people don't say. That's just the call on my life in general. And so I use the book as a platform to not only support people who are overcoming or actively battling cancer, but as a mouthpiece, a window into one person's view or one person's experience for caregivers to be supported and encouraged differently, and for the overall community to have a little more information about how to respond. Because what I did learn is that not everyone's community is responsive, and some people become a little afraid and sometimes even retreat from the life of those who are impacted. And that is not isolated to our culture. There's another young lady who runs the Faces group. It's another nonprofit for cancer, people who are navigating cancer. And she shared a similar experience. And so the book was intended to just kind of give a little peek into one person's journey about what is it like? What was the various parts being moved around, and how are people able to navigate this as onlookers in a more supportive way? I initially thought my one experience.
Dr. Shanae, we're going to hear that second part of that, but we're going to go ahead and take a break, and we'll come back after the commercial break with you.
Yes, ma'am.
Back in a moment, let us take this opportunity to thank our sponsor for this show, Moffitt Cancer Center. Back in a moment.
Cancer affects everyone, but minority populations are often hit hardest. Moffitt Cancer Center is working to address the barriers that keep some groups from getting the care they need. African Americans develop cancer at a younger age, have more aggressive cancers, and experience worse outcomes than the general population.
While cancer treatment is evolving with precision medicine, who is being left behind? We know for many decades that some groups experience a greater burden of cancer than others. We can prevent it, we can detect it early. It's very beatable when we find it early. I've worked with cancer patients during their treatment. All cancer patients have courage.
So my treatment was about 18 months. I had 3 cancers and 7 surgeries. But my son told me, like, Mom, you're the strongest person that I know. Moffitt saved my life.
During COVID-19, Moffitt is a safe place for your cancer care. Call now to schedule an appointment.
Strong, beautiful women take charge of their lives, and it starts with learning the facts. Did you know that most women diagnosed with breast cancer have no known risk factors or family history, and it's more deadly for Black women than any other race or ethnic group? But it doesn't have to be. If you're over 40, regardless of your race or ethnicity, you need to get a mammogram every year. Early detection saves lives. Talk with your doctor about the best screening plan
Cancer affects
for a
everyone,
strong,
but
beautiful
minority
you.
populations are often hit hardest. Moffitt Cancer Center is working to address the barriers that keep some groups from getting the care they need. African Americans develop cancer at a younger age, have more aggressive cancers, and experience worse outcomes than the general population.
While cancer treatment is evolving with precision medicine, who is being left behind? We know for many decades that some groups experience a greater burden of cancer than others. We can prevent it, we can detect it early. It's very beatable when we find it early. I have worked with cancer patients during their treatment. All cancer patients have courage.
So my treatment was about 18 months. I had 3 cancers and 7 surgeries. But my son told me, like, Mom, you're the strongest person that I know. Moffitt saved my life.
During COVID-19, Moffitt is a safe place for your cancer care. Call now to schedule an appointment.
Each time I hear that commercial, Melissa, and the voice of you making this statement from what your son said, you've got 3 sons. Which one said, Mom, you are the strongest person I know?
That would be Javier. Javier is my son.
Javier.
Yes.
The H is silent. The J is silent. Javier. And that just takes us back to having this personal, almost intimate, as I listen to you all in our pink table discussion. My heart is just so full. And to hear you making discoveries even today, years after you've been diagnosed, giving us a glimpse of what life has been like for you then and as well now. There's a lot of technical pieces we can get through. I wanted to hear you talk about the actual chemotherapy and how it affects you. Some lose their hair, some don't. But we're going to go back into our pink table discussions with you ladies who have experienced it all. But again, let me take this opportunity to say thank you to our primary sponsor, Moffitt Cancer Center. Just seeing the videos wherein they're incorporating people of color is, to your point, Melissa, to be able to go into a discussion where you can see people who look like you, and to Michelle as well. We're going to talk about it at the end of the show, because I met Melissa at, I think it was Ladies Night Out, Ladies in Pink Night Out at Moffitt Cancer Center. That was my first time meeting her. She remembered me from something else, but that was our first time making that meeting. And we'll talk about Ladies Night Out, that whole pink night with Moffitt Cancer Center. Back to you, Dr. Davis, so that we can delve back into the pink table talk discussions with our amazing sheroes today.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you again, ladies, for taking this time to enlighten our audience, to have this conversation and to disclose, and especially for your bravery, Michelle, in saying that you hope no one you know sees this, for whomever sees this. We thank you so much for watching. Again, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and that's just not for women. Men can get breast cancer too. But for women, 1 in 8 will experience breast cancer over the course of their lifetime. Breast cancer is caused when their DNA, all of us have DNA, but the DNA in breast tissue change and begins to proliferate and grow as something different than the original set of tissue. All women are at risk, but the risk over age 50, it seems to even out in the races. No matter if you are Black or white or whatever, over age 50. So women that have had a menstrual onset before 12, so if you started your period before 12, that means you have been exposed to hormones for a longer amount of time. If you've been told to have dense or cord-like breasts, that's a risk factor as well. If there's a family history of breast or ovarian cancer, especially in first-degree relatives. That means a mother, a sister, a daughter, or even a dad. All of those are risk factors, and those should be disclosed to your healthcare provider and other people in your family so that you can address those risks accordingly. Like you heard in that Moffitt commercial, Black women, minority women experience breast cancer earlier than 50, and it's also more aggressive during those ages. And we all should be doing those self-breast exams. There is a segment or a section on the CDC website now. It says, Bring Your Brave. It's a campaign to bring awareness to just this, cancers that happen in women under the age of 50. But that over 45 is so significant. Dr. Shanae was in her 30s. Melissa was under 45. Aaliyah was under 45. And most recently, the governor's wife, Casey DeSantis, she's only 41. She too has been diagnosed with breast cancer. So we need to check, and we need to have these discussions to bring awareness to the need to just know our bodies, check ourselves, and also say something when you feel something different. Breast cancer awareness is about more than just wearing pink. Let's get back to our table. Let me give you a question to start with, ladies. In hindsight, what risk factor did you see and ignore, or see and maybe didn't know that it may have been an indicator of breast cancer? Talk to us about what you saw in yourselves that prompted a healthcare visit.
Okay, I will start with that one. So I did feel my lump. Asked my spouse, he felt it as well, and I did go to my primary. So where I say it gets a little tricky is I had my mammogram at one of the local imaging centers, and they said, we call you or contact your primary, don't call us. And I was very passive. I didn't call them like they said, and I didn't call my primary care, and he did not call me either with the results. So that's what, and I would definitely always caution people, and I say this all the time, if they say 5 or 10 working days, business days, whatever, calendar days, on that day 5, 10, whatever they say, you need to be calling and contacting someone. So I guess mine would just be not to be passive. I felt it, and I did what I was supposed to, but I just didn't follow through. And I beat myself up quite often about maybe my treatment might not have been as long as it was, because it was 6 months later before I started treatment. I had the mammogram like in the spring, went to Essence, came back, and I started treatment in August. So of course, I'm like 6 months, it's growing in me. Maybe I could have, it's a lot of maybes is what I went through. So I would just say, don't be passive. Your body's letting you know that something's wrong with it. So.
What did you find, Michelle, Shanae, Aaliyah?
I really was a walking risk factor. When I look back at my life now, I think about things. I had high blood pressure. I was significantly overweight. I wasn't getting exercise the way that I needed to get exercise. My job was a pressure cooker. My children were engaged in a lot of stuff, which kept me running all the time. I wasn't sleeping. So I was just a whole list of risk factors. Unfortunately, I don't know that at any point during that time that I stopped to think, these could be risk factors for cancer. I never made that type of a connection. And then the thing that was even worse than all of it, I was not doing self-exams. So my entire life was leading me down the path of some type of illness, and it just happened to be cancer, before it was anything else. So I think perhaps that's part of the reason why I still carry this this didn't have to happen, which may not even be the truth, but I still carry that because I knew everything that was wrong, but I really didn't take any steps to correct those things until after the fact.
I would echo what Michelle said. I was a walking risk factor. Actually, everything that she said is very true to me. I think where our stories differ is that I did have signs that I ignored. I had some changes in the texture on my breast, my left breast. And at one point I had milky discharge in my breast. And then I had a lump, and that's when I began to pay attention. I had been so busy that anything that was out of the norm in my own physical health, I just didn't attend to. There were all kinds of stressors that we were navigating in our family, immediate and extended. When we present as a group, usually I announce myself as the hard-headed one because I was the one of I'm the one I don't think anybody else ignored their signs as long as I have. And it wasn't until talking to Dr. Shanae actually last week that I realized that I technically ignored my signs for 11 months, at which time I got diagnosed at stage 3. I ignored signs. I was busy and I was absolutely a walking risk factor, and too passive for too long.
Yeah.
Okay, so as for me, I ignored the signs for years. My son was about 4 years old when I finally went in because of a lump, and I thought was a muscle. But I remember after I stopped breastfeeding him, that I was still making what I thought was milk. If I were to wear a white bra, there will be like a brown crust, in my bra. So I would occur that to God, you're something else. I'm still trying to make milk. There's no baby, that was out of ignorance. And so the lump continued to grow. So I would say about 5 years, I can see this mass grow on my chest, which I thought was a muscle, but it was actually a tumor. And so when I finally went in, I remember the doctor, when he opened my vest, he didn't say a word. It was all over his face, the expression, and he just left the room, and everything was like that immediately. We don't have time to waste. And so the cancer that they told me I had was invasive. And as a matter of fact, when they named it, it seems as if it grew even faster. And there's no family history of breast cancer. I didn't drink, smoke, no drugs, nothing, so nothing equated, to cancer. I just didn't live the life, and there was no family history.
Let me just hear you say this again, if I heard this right. When you open your shirt to be examined, the doctor could see.
It was there. It was visible. Yep.
Wow. What's different about your post-cancer lifestyle? Since you've gone through this journey, and thank God you did, sometimes we're a testimony and we don't even know it. Okay, God has a purpose for every experience. How has your post-cancer or survivor lifestyle been different? Certainly as leader of the Sisters Network, Melissa, and all over Moffitt, and we're so grateful for our connection to you with Let's Talk Business, and also your participation with the shows over the years. We know what you've done and how you've brought others in. But outside of the support group and the advocacy, what have you done different? How has cancer changed your life?
Oh, great question. So outside of all of the advocacy, it just puts a different perspective on your life. Myself thinking that I was not going to be here long enough to witness Jaden, the youngest, again, because I stated the other two were teenagers and they already had me, but the little one is what I prayed and said, Lord, I think he still needs me. He still needs his mom. So that just my whole, I can't, I know this is cliche. I cannot do drama. I cannot, because I feel like my purpose is different. Before I was, I got a goal-oriented job. I got to be the first Black woman to do this. I'm going to be a director. I'm going to do this, that. And just with the diagnosis now, it's like, okay, I'm going to write a book for these Black children. I'm going to do, so everything that I had put on hold is what I do now, if that makes sense. So it definitely put perspective on. I can't, before I was hard-headed. I cursed, I swore, I'm a sailor. I did everything, but it's just now it's like, Melissa, you don't have to communicate that way, or Melissa, you don't have to. It just puts so much. It's like I was spared for a reason. How can I not give back? I would do things in the community, but I try not to turn people down when they ask me to do things. And it's just that my calendar could be full. But with that being said, I'm just like, you need me, I'm here. I'm staying up late talking to, folks, whoever needs me or whatever, or what have you. So it put a perspective on me. I still don't eat vegetables. So that had to change. I don't care what them nurses and doctors put it, smoothie, eat the green. I don't do that, but it's just something about it, and I can't put my hand on it. It's just when I look back at everything that I went through, it's like, how can I not make sure that someone does not go through this? And I think about the tears, the crying, and me putting on a brave face. Shanae has saw me, Dr. Shanae Simmons has saw me. I know I'm a crybaby because I'll be fine giving testimony and then it will just overcome me as to, I'll hear it. I was like, God, Melissa, you went through a lot. You're telling these people you went through a lot. And then, the tears will come and, we're at same events. She'll pat me, hug me. She knows it's coming. But I just refuse to have any of the other mothers that are nucleuses of their family. It's like when I hear a woman says they haven't had their boobies checked in 7 years, I'm like, sis, what you doing? What do you mean? And to hear them say that it was because it didn't hurt. That's why they didn't get the mammogram. I had it once and it hurt. And I'm like, and I had 18 months, sis. I know I've overdone the answer than what you asked me, Dr. Davis, but I just let the other ladies answer. But it changed me.
That post-cancer lifestyle, how did it change you, Aaliyah, Shanae, Michelle?
I live authentically with Dr. Shanae. I had a good friend who'd been through cancer a few times, who was somewhat of a mentor for me in the process. And she told me not to put my dreams down because one of the first things that kind of came up for me was fear of death. And so I live authentically. I don't do things I don't want to do. I do things I want to do. I lean into my fear. I don't take for granted that God gave me another day. And I use every day, wrung out. I wring myself out for the Lord. Now, that doesn't mean that every day is busy, although lots of them are, but it does mean that every day is purposeful and it's not full of drama. I adjust my surroundings and my associations and my affiliations so that I'm not doing anything that is not in alignment with what I say I represent. And that's ultimately the nutshell of what changed. I challenged my bodies in ways that I'd never done before. I was grateful to meet Michelle because she introduced me to another group that allowed me to do some water sports, and I don't even know how to swim. But just, it's different. And I understand Melissa's challenge in articulating that difference. But the way that I am best able to articulate it is I live for the purpose that I believe I'm here for. And anything that doesn't align with that, I just can't do.
And Leah, Michelle. Tell us
Go ahead and go. I'll go ahead and go. It's really interesting for me because I found that all of the risk factors I talked about was because I was neglecting self. I was neglecting myself physically, mentally, spiritually, just the whole 9 yards. So for me, my post-cancer experience has almost been a little bit more towards indulging myself. And when I say indulging, I don't necessarily mean, what I eat or anything like that, because I'm still trying to keep that at bay, but indulging myself in the things that bring me joy and bring me happiness, because that's when I'm at my best. I mentioned in my bio, I love the outdoors. I love hiking. I love camping, water sports, all of those things. And they're the things that help me alleviate stress. They're the things that I can share with other people who may not have experienced it and bring them a little bit of a smile or a little bit of joy. So I really, in essence, had to go back and reclaim the person that I used to be and lost sight of. And that's how I live my life now. I'm very aware of others and their needs, and I try to fulfill them as best I can. But the difference is now I don't necessarily do that at the sacrifice of myself. I'm really learning to live my life, enjoy my life, take care of my life. And that's the best thing I could do for others.
Good.
As for me, I know now it's okay to be vulnerable. It is okay to lean on those who are there for you to support and not think of it as a burden, but to know that they're there because they love you. One, and then not to carry the burdens. It's okay to say enough is enough. For me, I feel that the cells became diseased because of the stress. I was in an unhealthy marriage. So some things I had to walk away from, so that I can live, and live intentionally. Because I do believe that because I survived that sentence, that there's better, in store.
Wonderful. I think it's just wonderful also that, we talked about the risk factors that I mentioned, the age being over 50, having your period, starting your period before age 12, having a family history. Those things are non-modifiable. But Michelle brought up some of the things that were modifiable, as you did, Aaliyah, like stress. Stress, obesity, coexisting chronic diseases, heart disease, diabetes, those conditions are actually pro-inflammatory. And all of those increase the chance that you'll have some type of cellular mutation that can proliferate and turn into cancer. Your diet makes a difference in introducing, things that stimulate or could stimulate cellular changes in the DNA and mutations, which are carcinogens, smoking, eating a lot of processed foods, things that have nitrates in them. All of those things can place you at greater risk for having cancer. So those are the risk factors that we can modify. And what I'm hearing is that if you knew what you knew at the time that you could have made a difference, you would have. And we certainly want to encourage our audience to do those things. Modify while you can. When you know better, do better. I want to talk about some of the symptoms of breast cancer. They can be a lump or a mass, which could be painful or not. Some of our pink table participants have talked about, having a lump, but it didn't hurt. A lump or swelling under the arm or collarbone. This is your lymph system letting you know that something's wrong. So lymph nodes sometimes swell when the adjacent organ or the adjacent system has a problem. So listen to your body. And when you, again, see something, say something. Skin irritation or dimpling, like Dr. Shanae said that she noticed first. Breast or nipple pain, if you have a retracted, a nipple that's newly retracted. Sometimes we have retracted nipples, but if it wasn't retracted and now it retracts, we should speak to that. Also redness or scaliness or thickening of the breast skin, discharge of the nipple, warmth or itching at the breast that wasn't done or wasn't noticed before, and then discharge of the nipple other than breast milk, like Leah mentioned there. All of those are symptoms that absolutely need to be reported. When should you have a mammogram? The U.S. Preventive Task Force says at age 50 and every couple of years after that. However, because we just live in a society of convenience, many of us, eat foods that are processed often. We eat things that are just easy to get to, things that contain carcinogens that we just may not know about. Most healthcare providers go with the American Cancer Society recommendation of annually. If you are African American or you have a family history or you've been told that someone in your family or you've been BRCA gene tested yourself, you may need to check earlier than that. At age 40, I personally see many patients that are minority, and we start screening for breast cancer at age 40. We always encourage these self-breast exams. After age 18, everybody needs to be doing their self-breast exams. But, when it's in the family, we can teach our girls and our boys, if there is breast tissue there, if there's something to feel right there, feel it so that you know what your own lumps and bumps feel like. The week after your period, if you're still menstruating, is the right week. Breasts are glands, and there are natural lumps and bumps in it. And during times of hormone changes, we are unable to tell always if that lump was there or not. But if you check the week after your period, that's the best time to feel just breast tissue. So get your mammogram. Always do your self-breast exam at least once a month. And if you have trouble accessing, there's some resources around town. The Sisters Network can help you get a free mammogram if you need to. I know that Tower Diagnostics has an October special, $50 if you're uninsured or underinsured for a screening mammogram. Advent Health has them for $30. I'm sure Baycare has something, or they may match, but there are many radiology centers around the Tampa Bay area. And I'm certain that if you're not in the Tampa Bay area, that there are hospitals and radiology organizations offering something similar, but it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And these ladies have shared their story today. And we appreciate you.
And what incredible stories they have shared. You all just bear with us for just a moment. We're going to allow Ntouch to sign us off, but we wanted to come back and give you an appropriate ending of the show. So please stand by briefly for Ntouch to end with their commercial.